youth into the world of work. We're here to explore the critical journey of empowering young people to overcome challenges and build successful futures. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to truly exceptional panel of presenters. They bring a wealth of experience and passion to this critical topic. Our panelists include Rachel Hampton from the Lone Star Justice, Bridget Beck from Eastern Kentucky, Claudia from Florida, and Larissa Regnoli and Jessica Trujillo from Arapahoe Douglas Works right here in Colorado. We do encourage you to submit your questions throughout the session using the chat feature. We'll either address those during our Q&A portion at the end or ask our presenters to respond directly in the chat. Get ready to be informed and inspired. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm turning it over to you, Rachel.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Rachel Hampton, and I'm the Chief Mission Officer for the Lone Star Justice Alliance. We operate, as our name would suggest, in Texas. We have offices in both Dallas and Austin, and we do serve clients statewide. So I'm going to pop in because I know we are short on time. So the collaborative that I'm here to talk to you guys about today is our Just Careers program, which is part of the Connect You to Jobs collaborative operating in Dallas. The first step that I want to take is just letting you guys know the model that we use in engaging our justice-involved 18 through 24-year-olds. This is our proprietary transformative justice model, and our theory of change is that developmentally appropriate behavioral interventions within the community context will reduce recidivism, improve social determinants of health, and be more cost-effective than jail, prison, or probation. The biggest underpinning here is that it is services that are delivered to our justice-involved youth in a community setting and not in a carceral setting. There are 6 key elements that underpin the transformative justice model. The first is looking at that emerging adults are adaptable and amenable to change. They are susceptible to both negative and positive peer pressure. Decision-making inside of our model should be individualized and informed by assessments. Case management should be trauma-informed, relationship-driven, and there's that underpin again, delivered in the community. Incentive-based programming should be tailored to diminish problem behaviors and increase adaptive skills. We take a positive youth development approach to all of our work and how our service delivery is set up. Youth should be engaged in their community utilizing race equity principles, and program managers should measure performance outcomes and create focused feedback loops. So this is sort of a visual representation of the transformative justice model. Now, most of you guys are familiar with social determinants of health. I have this on the slide just in case it's helpful. But our model really works to ensure that we are looking at our young adults, that we are looking at them holistically, that we identify all of their needs, not just their workforce or occupational training needs, that we're focusing on their medical, mental health, education, housing, income. And I would argue that a new social determinant of health that should be its own thing is transportation. It is a huge issue that we are seeing across the board in Dallas and really across the state. We work to provide cross-system solutions to ensure that we're creating an ecosystem of support for our youth. Our work is to reduce racial and ethnic disparities in the justice system. While I will not speak for any other state here, I will speak for Texas. We do have a disproportionate number of our youth that are involved in the justice system are Black or brown. And ensuring that young people understand and assert their rights inside of this space. So our collaborative model that we're here to talk to you guys about is the Connect You to Jobs model. So LSJ's program is called Just Careers, and we participate in this full core team collaborative. This is a collaborative that is run in partnership with the Texas Department of Transportation, Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas, and JJG Development. So here are the core team roles. LSJ, we operate as the program managers, client management, data collection, employer training and support partner. Texas Department of Transportation does employer recruitment and support, funding, strategic planning and support. JJG is our training provider. They provide all of the occupational training, classroom support, and they've also, because they love our program so much, have started offering scholarships to our youth who are not WIOA eligible. And then Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas and its contractor provide the WIOA youth support. So they help with employer recruitment, occupational training, and those work experience or paid internship dollars. This really is a full collaborative. LSJ partners with Youth 180 to provide our on-site mental health services. So all of our young adults have access to individual and group counseling as part of our model. We also work with our regional Hispanic and regional Black contractors associations. And then our employer partners are listed over here on the right. You will notice that they are all construction employers because this is a construction and heavy equipment project. Our program activity timeline looks a little bit like this. If everything was so linear, our jobs would be so easy. But there's a little bit of squiggle sometimes in our activity timeline, but we start with doing an intake and assessment. We do comprehensive assessments of all of our youth and young adults. We do program orientation and employer matching. The first 2 weeks of our program, it's an overall 9-week intensive program. They earn their OSHA 10, their flagger and fall prevention certifications, and their heavy equipment operator certifications in those first 2 weeks. After that, they then shift into doing a paid work experience with a local industry employer. So all of those employer logos you saw listed are offering paid work experiences to our youth. They work in that space between 5 to 7 weeks. I say it's between because some of our youth are more ready to go and are ready for permanent employment earlier than some of our others. And really I say 5 to 7, but sometimes work experience can last up to 12 weeks, really just depending on what the youth needs. In a perfect world, let's say our youth is ready to go. They've gotten all of their certifications. They have worked with their employer for 7 weeks. Employer says, yes, I'm ready to go. They get a job offer. They go through our graduation ceremony, and then we follow them for 180 days post placement, because as we all know, jobs are not they're not the final step. Sometimes they're really just like the third step on a journey of 15. Key program services that I think are really important to talk about in our model is that we operate with a multidisciplinary team. So on a weekly basis, our care team is meeting. Our care team is made up of the WIOA youth case manager, LSJA case manager, Youth 180 mental health counselor, Josh, who is our instructor from JJG, and then TxDOT and Workforce Solutions. We meet on a weekly basis to make sure that we are making sure that all of the needs of our young adults are met. A lot of this looks like making sure that employers understand probation restrictions that may be in place for our young adults, that we are in communication with probation and parole officers about curfew restrictions and ankle monitor restrictions, making sure that all of them are aware of what's going on. We are in daily contact with our participants during these 9 weeks. Whenever they start with us, we tell them that we are going to be all up in your business for a while. If you don't reply to us, if you do not show up in the classroom, if you do not show up at work, we will go do a home visit to make sure that A, number one, that you're okay, and B, make sure that you know and see that we care about you and we are here to make sure that you can complete this program. As I've already mentioned, we do offer on-site counseling. We have mandatory group sessions on a weekly basis, and we do offer voluntary individual counseling. I am not big on mandating individual counseling because it just doesn't work, but we do have mandatory group sessions. And I am pleased to report that for the first time, we have just run our 9th cohort, and every single participant in that cohort has voluntarily put themselves into individual counseling, which is a huge win for us, especially for this age range, and especially because we are 97% young men, and most young men are less inclined to go into therapy than young women. This is an earn and learn program, so youth are paid the entire time they are in the program. I put the 13 on here to just show you where we started. So we actually started at $12 an hour, and we are now up to 15, and we'll be implementing another raise at $16 per hour in 2025. So participants are paid for both their classroom and their job site time. We also do a daily attendance stipend. So for the first 2 weeks of the program, most of our youth have told us that they cannot wait 2 weeks to be paid. They're like, this is all well and good that this is earn and learn, but I can't wait 2 weeks to be paid. So leveraging positive youth development theory, we implemented a daily attendance stipend. So when our youth show up on time in the morning, they get $40 added to their reloadable card. When they show up on time in the afternoon, they get $40 loaded. So it's $80 a day for the first 2 weeks to really incentivize those change behaviors that we want to see. Another hallmark of our program is employer support. So just like we provide case management and support to our clients, as any of you know, if you've been working with employers at all, sometimes employers take just as much case management as our participants do. They go dark on you. Sometimes they are engaged, sometimes they need help. And so every single one of our employer supervisors, they're also assigned a transition coach. They get to work with us. They get to call us if something happens, and we intervene. We really serve as that conduit between the youth and the employer. Of course, we provide industry recognized credentials, which you guys heard, and then we also provide supportive services. So we do assistance with transportation, basic needs, mental health, IDs and documentation. We also, with our private funding, help our youth on their probation and parole fees, which are some of the biggest things that we have seen holding our youth back. The last key hallmark of our program is our community engagement. So on a weekly basis, we bring in a variety of different speakers from the same area from which our youth grew up and come from. So if any of you guys are familiar with Dallas, you may be familiar with the Oak Cliff area. Oak Cliff is a 3 zip code area. These 3 zip codes disproportionately make up 8% of the total population of TDCJ. So when you really think about that, essentially 5 to 10 mile square situation is making up 8% of the total population of TDCJ. We bring in speakers from that same area to talk about a variety of different topics that range from homeownership, banking, trusting banking institutions, voting, civil rights, all the way to things like coping mechanisms, grounding, and then we have someone who routinely comes in every cohort and does a sound bath with all of our young adults. So this is another key element. One of the reasons why we have this community engagement is we really believe that if we can get our youth connected to the community, community is what sustains change. And if we can help them set up a circle of support in an ecosystem of caring adults, that we will see positive results. I'm going to end with our success rate so far is that 86% of the total youth that we have served have earned an industry recognized credential. 86% have been placed into the field, and we have a less than 6% recidivism rate for our young adults within the first year after graduation. I'm pleased to report that actually 3 weeks ago, one of our very first participants who started with us in 2021 just accepted a job at $90,000 a year. Which is pretty incredible. So I think that I have just run up right against my time. So I'm going to kick it over to the next presenter.
Rachel, thank you for that. And one of the things I'm going to add in there before I introduce Bridget is a lot of this is braided funding, specifically through the Lone Star Justice Group. And so please don't think this is all WIOA funding, but there is some WIOA funding involved. And I'm sure in my conversations with Rachel, she's happy to share this information far and wide because there's some really great things. I'm going to kick it over to my friend from Eastern Kentucky, who's also in a boot camp with me. And so, Bridget, I'm going to kick it over to you. Bridget Beck from the Eastern Kentucky Concentrated Employment Program. You're up, my friend, and good luck.
Well, thank you for that. So, as Todd said, I am Bridget Beck. I'm the Deputy Director of EKSEP. We serve 23 Eastern Kentucky counties. Our counties, typically, anytime that the government runs a report on needs, we light it up like a Christmas tree. So, our area typically has high poverty. We are an area that was hit particularly hard with the opioid epidemic and the meth epidemic that came after that. So we have a lot of need. Two of the things that we have done at EKSEP in the past year is we have really increased our efforts with youth programs, and we created a whole recovery and reentry program. Now, we are heavily WIOA funded, but we do braid other funding as well. So we get funding from the state. We get opioid abatement funding and other funding from the state to help with that. And that's kind of helped us to kick off our recovery and reentry program. Last year, our program served over 15,000 Kentuckians in all of our programs. One of the things that we talk about a lot is our recovery and reentry program. And this is where we deal a lot with those youth that we're here to talk about today. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of is that younger kids are getting involved in the justice system earlier now. It used to be that when we ran recovery or reentry programs, you were talking about older adults. You're seeing more and more youth now coming out with that. Like I said, we are running several of those right now. One of the programs that we run is the Strategic Initiative for Transformational Employment. So that's the SITE program. And we actually run that program through the whole state of Kentucky. So that is a state-led initiative that we run that helps people who have had any kind of issues with recovery and reentry integrate back into the workforce. And as we just heard from the last speaker, a lot of that has to deal with wraparound services. So finding them a job and helping them obtain employment, that's just a piece of the puzzle. You really have to have the wraparound services with that. And one of the things that we've really done with our recovery and reentry program is your partners. The community is got to be critical with that, and your partners around that. Your mental health practitioners are very important with this. Behavioral health, all of those, because you're talking about individuals that have had a lot of trauma. They have had a lot of issues that they have to work through. A lot of times that's a barrier to keep them employed. So being able to provide those wraparound services within that space. One of the other programs that we operate is the barrier relief. Barrier relief is a program that if you have been justice involved at all, barrier relief works through the administrative office of the courts and through the behavioral health counselors. And what barrier relief does is it addresses those barriers that help keep them to employment. So if they need help with rental assistance, or if they need help with transportation, we're in a very rural area of Eastern Kentucky. Transportation is a huge problem. A lot of times people just can't get there. So being able to take care of those barriers and to be able to work through that. Food insecurity is another big issue. A lot of times, and people will be embarrassed and afraid to ask, or say that they have issues with food insecurity. So a lot of times these barrier relief programs, the issues that they have will come out of the behavioral health counselor and come to us, and that's where we help provide the services there. We work really close with the Floyd County Drug Court. We actually have an individual that is placed there within the drug court at least 20 hours a week, and that's been extremely helpful. Crisis stabilization is a program that we run in Hardin County with the Women's Detention Center. And our new project Reach, that's through the opioid abatement. But our recovery and reentry last year, we've served over 5,000 people. We had over 1,000 complete trainings. We provided over 2,500 with supportive services and helped over 1,600 obtain new employment. You can see right here the map of Kentucky and how we're broken out. This pinkish area here, or red, I guess I should say, that is our WIOA. That's our workforce board area. That's the area that we cover with regular WIOA services, but you can see how we expand through the whole state for recovery and reentry. That ties together with our Prosper Appalachia program. So Prosper Appalachia is our youth program that specifically deals with those that are 16 to 24-year-old. And we do provide services there with justice involved youth and those individuals from recovery and addiction. And a lot of times what we see with those with recovery and addiction is it has been a family history. A lot of times you're dealing with second and third generation that have these issues, and they've been brought up in that environment. So a lot of times while you're working with the youth, you find out that you also need to work with the parents and help them with those issues. Some of the projects that we have just completed, we actually worked with the Knox County Detention Center with the women there and created a peer support academy. So those women actually went through training while they were in jail still to get that peer support so that when they come out, then they can be able to help others with that. We're working with that same jail and the local community college system. The community college system is one of your biggest champions with this. And we have 2 community college systems in our region that is working closely with the jails. In the Knox County area, we have Southeast Community College, and they will be taking them from the jail in the evenings over to the college. The same thing they do in Hazard, and they're working with them to train them with welding. So while they are in jail, they're actually learning those services. When our recovery and reentry coordinators go into the jails, we have services that they can help while they're in there as well. So we have purchased VR headsets that have career exploration software on them, and when we can work with those while they're incarcerated, working with them to do career expression. You know, they can have access to careers and to be able to do career exploration that they never would have had before. You know, and working with them while they are incarcerated and helping to make a plan with them so that as soon as they come out, then we can help pair them with a work experience or short-term training to help get some tuition assistance. You know, we have a lot of them that will go to CDLs, linemen, welding, a lot of skilled trades. We work with them to overcome those barriers. A lot of one-on-one career advising. Again, you're talking about a population that is very fragile and has had a lot of trauma. So working with them on one-on-one. A lot of times with WIOA, you can also work in a group. You know, when you're working with youth, you work in a group, you work on job clubs. A lot of times what we see with those coming out of reentry is they don't want to talk in front of a lot of other people. So really doing that one-on-one career advising with them and pulling in those partners, it's all about the community and having that involvement and making sure that your partners are able to be there as well in that same space. But it's meeting them where they are and helping them so that when they are out, they have a better plan. One of the things that we've seen that helps to reduce recidivism on the programs that we run is that when you do go into the system with them and work with them and have that plan, they get to that faster and they're a lot more steady with that than if they come out on their own and then they're left to try to find their employment plan. So that's pretty much what we do with that. A lot of our reentry, I will admit, is in the infancy stages. You know, we've ran that for a few years, but we still feel like there's a lot of growth there. It's a large population that needs a lot of help. So that's one of the things we're really focusing on. So Todd, I will let
Bridget,
you
I
take it
thank
back.
you so much for digging deep. And, one of the conversations I had with you is you said that it was in the infancy stages, and I said, we need every stage represented here. And so I appreciate you talking about it, and the breadth of the work that you're doing is just incredible. With that, I am going to kick it over to another good friend of mine, Claudia Laus, who is from the great state of Florida. And is with a project that I think is in multiple regions. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Claudia, but definitely helping young adults across the state of Florida to prosper. So, Claudia, it's up to you, or it's over to you.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you for having me. We are across several judicial circuits across South and Central Florida with our program Project Bridge. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit about what we do. This idea actually came about as a partnership. We're funded by the Department of Juvenile Justice, and we have a partnership with Home Builders Institute, as well as previously had a partnership with Hinkles and McCoy and Paxson, which are now part of our ECHARD program as well. So we serve at-risk youth. We've been serving them since 2013 across 12 circuits across South and Central Florida again. The youth are anywhere between the ages of 11 to 21. We serve both boys and girls. Our focus is really on post-placement stability through the transition coordination. So we have pre-service coordinators that start working with the kids while they're in residential programs before they actually transition back into their communities. So I can't say enough how that piece is so important. And it has really, really helped with the success of the clients and families that we serve, because it gives us an opportunity to start thinking about, hey, what are we going to be doing differently, and what services do we need to have in place before you actually come back home? So the population we serve, again, are transitioning mostly back from residential programs. And all of the kids that we serve are through the Department of Juvenile Justice. So all of our referrals come through the Department of Juvenile Justice. One of the things that is really unique about Project Bridge is it's not a cookie cutter approach. We didn't intend to have services, the same services for every single client. We are very heavy on individualizing our transition plans based on assessments and based on what the kids need, looking at their background, looking at where they want to go, and having, again, that pre-service piece in place to know, hey, what are their goals now that they're coming back into their communities, as well as working with the juvenile probation officer, the parents, any other providers that are going to be at the table who's, who are going to be providing services for them, just making sure that we have a good solid plan in place for when they return back into the community. Our main core services are education services. So we have our own GED instructors that provide services on site at every single circuit that we operate in. We offer GED instruction, skills remediation for those clients who are not quite there to get their GED, but they do ultimately want to get their GED. So we start working with them on skills remediation, post-secondary support. So if a youth is already graduated or has their GED, or is almost about to graduate, we start working with them. Hey, let's help you fill out the FAFSA. Let's look, or do you know what you want to pursue as far as a post-secondary? And post-secondary, we understand, especially nowadays, is not just a college or university. It could very well be a trade, right? So we start kind of, having those conversations with them to see how we can best support them with those in that area. Our employment services, we offer career workshops, credentialing and job placement. Again, in some of our judicial circuits, we subcontract with Home Builders Institute, who help provide those services. And in some of our other circuits, we have our own Eckerd workforce, which again used to be Hengels and McCoy. We try to, the way that we provide services, we try to be very hands-on, help them through the resume building, interview process, what are we wearing, even transporting them over to, to the job interview, taking them, to just career fairs, and whatnot. We try to be hands-on in the sense that when we do our life skills or our career workshops, we try to do it where it's going to be hands-on. It's not just all instructional. So we do a lot of services and partner with a lot of agencies throughout the communities as well. We do weekly mentoring. And I think one of the key things that I've heard from the other presenters as well is having that transportation and how important that is, because we do operate in some rural areas where transportation is a huge challenge. So I think that is one really important key factor. I think across the board is being able to provide that transportation for those clients, who transportation is definitely going to be a roadblock or an issue for them to be successful. So to tell you a little bit about our service delivery, again, I shared with you the different education components that we have within Project Bridge. I don't think I spoke about pupil progression and tutoring. So those are for the kids that are actually in school. We do pupil progression, meaning we meet with the counselors, we see where they're at. Do they need help in a certain area? Can they get that help in school? And if not, our GED instructors will also help with that tutoring component. And we provide services face-to-face, but we can also provide services virtually as if needed, or if that works better for the client. We have our career assessments, pre-vocational workshops, and industry recognized credentialing, job shadowing, and career placement. So that's all part of the workforce piece that Project Bridge does. Our mentoring is done through community partners, individual volunteers, and even our Project Bridge are what we call our transition support specialists, who provide also mentoring for our clients. We have a requirement of 4 hours of mentoring for the clients. We try to be innovative and engaging in that sense, where we don't just want to make it a mandatory, hey, we need to have 4 hours, but we try to, take them out, expose them to new experiences, do activities with their mentors. We've had basketball tournaments. We just try to make it fun for the clients, where it's a bonding moment, rather than just, checking the box from a mentoring standpoint. Again, the transportation is a key piece to our services. And I think from an added value service, we try to promote a lot through social media. We know that not everything that we do, as I imagine with any program, and Project Bridge included, we can't do through contract dollars. There's things that we want to be able to do for the kids, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But social media is extremely instrumental in that. Sharing the success of our clients has been really helpful through social media to be able to raise funds for those things that are just not covered through our contract dollars. We have our data calls. We're really good about sharing our data, where we're at. We have quarterly calls with our funders, just to share with them. It's about 20 pages worth of data. How many vocational certifications have we done? How much, how many youth have been employed? Where are we with mentoring? Where are we with, completers, non-completers? What's our roadblocks? What's working? What's not working? How can we work together to make it better? So those have been really instrumental as well for our program. We have our website. We do activities with our kids. We try to make it really fun. One of the things I always share with my team is, you can make this job as fun as you want. I myself started, in the field, so I can, I can attest to that. I used to get the kids out of bed and say, hey, we're going to Disney World today. And hey, it's a 4-hour drive from where I'm at, but it was extremely successful to just expose them to things that they had never been exposed to. Even if they didn't want to go, I would be like, come on, let's go. Let's get out there. It's something different. And it just shows them a new world of things that they hadn't seen before, and that, could potentially be engaging for them. Our restorative justice piece is also very important for our kids to understand, the impact of, of what they've done in the past, and be able to process that. It really helps through the transition, through their own personal transition, as they transition back to their communities. So vocation and employment placement. As I shared, Project Bridge started back in 2013. So we looked at a little bit of data. In the past 10 years, we've certified over 4,855 kids. We've placed over 3,343 youth in employment. Our certifications include SafeServe, NRF, OSHA, welding, and more. And when I say more, I mean really almost anything, because if it's something that is not available through our vocational instructors, because these are all certifications that we provide in-house, then we have a list of different certifications that we can pay for outside, that if they're interested in a different field, that we can tap into. All right, so those are basically our core services. We do have, I talked to you a little bit about how social media plays a role in our ability to have those additional funds that we may not be able to cover through our contract dollars. And so one of our programs is the Elite 60 program. Our Elite 60 program is a leadership and entrepreneurship program that was developed, I want to say about 3 years ago. I think it came about because of COVID. And so we needed an opportunity to engage the kids virtually. So we have this leadership and entrepreneurship program that we offer on a weekly basis to our clients. It's 1 hour, once a week. We do provide them a stipend for attending these meetings, but what it does is it exposes youth to different career interests. So some of the pictures that you see here are some of our volunteers who have come in to present to our clients. The one on the bottom is a really interesting one. I tell everyone about this because I think it's so unique. There was a client that wanted to learn about horse dentistry. and I know there's a name for it, but it's not coming to mind. But it was so unique. And so we found someone who could do one of our Elite 60 sessions and present on that, on what that looks like from start to finish. How did you become interested? What is it that you have to do to work on horse dentistry? What does it take? What does it look like? What is it like hands-on? And so we had this presenter come, and what it does is, yes, it was that one client who was interested, but then it exposes the other 90 clients. At any given point, we have between 90 and 120 clients on, right? Across South and Central Florida. And so it exposes other clients to something like this, that they may be like, wow, I didn't even know that existed, right? That's so interesting. So our Elite 60 program has been extremely successful. It's an added value. It is completely funded through fundraised dollars. We have a community engagement team who helps us with that. And, they just do an amazing job, whether it's through grants or through events that we hold on an annual basis, again, across South and Central Florida. Just wanted to share our Elite 60 success. So this is Giovanni. This is one of the clients that we had in South Florida. He was actually recognized in Tallahassee. You see him there with Secretary DJJ Secretary Hall being presented and awarded. He was one of the clients that came through our program. He was recognized as a youth ambassador. He actually started his own car washing business. We helped him get his LLC. We paid for it. We helped him get all the equipment for his business. And he is very, very successful now. Actually, I think he's starting a second business now. So we're extremely proud of him. He's just been such a role model, for our other clients, and just being able to share that success of what he's been able to accomplish. And again, he was someone who was exposed to all these opportunities through our Elite 60 program. Elite 60 it was originated and it operates out of South Florida. We also have our Project 180 program, and the Project 180 program provides a relapse prevention and life skills and supportive services to prepare the kids for any roadblocks they might have. So this is more of a program that begins after the youth have completed our Project Bridge program. They track them for an additional 180 days, and they help with any supportive services that they might have beyond what Project Bridge has provided. So again, kind of, similar to Elite 60, it provides small business opportunities, post-secondary scholarships, mentorship, and leadership development. And it is completely also funded through grants outside of our contracted dollars, through grants and donations and events, just like Elite 60. So and this is one of our youth that was enrolled in our P180 program. Just within 90 days of coming onto the program, he was able to achieve his GED, and also he received $5,000 to help pursue a career in underwater welding, and he's well on his way. So we're very proud of him, and just wanted to share a couple of unique stories that we've had through that additional programs that we've been able to implement for Project Bridge. And that is all I have for today. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Awesome, Claudia. I'm going to ask that we ask those questions at the save time for the end, but this was a great presentation of two different things going on in the South Florida area, and I really appreciate it. As I bring up the screen, I do want to introduce you to two great folks from the state of Colorado. I might be a little bit biased on some of this, but Jessica Trujillo and Larissa Romagnoli are the great folks from the Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Board, just south of the city and county of Denver. So Jessica and Larissa, I'm going to switch it over to you, and let me know as we go along if I'm on the right slide for you.
Great. Thank you very much, Todd. Good afternoon. I'm very excited to talk about our best practices for the through the Future You program at Arapahoe Douglas Works. My name is Jessica Trujillo, and I'm the program manager. I oversee an array of grants at Arapahoe Douglas Works, and I am joined by my colleague, Larissa Romagnoli. She is our Future You Young Adult Lead at Arapahoe Douglas Works. Next slide, please.
So Arapahoe Douglas Works is located in Colorado, as Todd said, and we serve job seekers and businesses in the Arapahoe and Douglas County regions and throughout the Denver and Aurora metro area. So the main office is located in Centennial, which is a suburb of Denver, but we have 5 other satellite offices in the community. So AD Works doesn't have residency requirements, which is great. So we can actually serve anyone that resides in the state of Colorado as needed. And we provide virtual and in-person services and strive very hard to meet our participants wherever they are at, depending on their needs. So the Future You program specifically refers to the WIOA Young Adult program at AD Works, and I'm an active case manager on the Future You team. And I can attest that our team consists of individuals who are really very passionate about improving the lives of the young folks who enroll with us, including those who have been involved in the justice system and are looking to reenter the community. Next slide, please.
So Arapahoe Douglas Works provides customer-centered, individualized, dynamic services that meets customers where they are at. We are co-located with Judicial Services, Public Health, Human Services, and our local community college, Arapahoe Community College. In addition, we have office hours and provide services at many of our community partners that serve young adults who are justice involved, such as a local community center, a food bank, a residential facility with childcare, and Aurora Mental Health and Recovery. We have a holistic 2-gen whole family approach. We assess the needs of the family, including childcare, education, pro-social activities, transportation, household, and living needs. For example, does everyone have beds, hygiene items, school uniforms, winter clothing, etc.? Fortunately, we have had very flexible funding streams where we can pay for social activities for youth, such as gym membership or after-school activities. And then we can do this by leveraging many of our grants, such as TANF, many of our discretionary grants, as well as through community partners and resources to address the 2-gen needs for those that WIOA can't support. We also utilize an evidence-based, science-informed coaching and career navigation methodology across our agency called Goal For It. Justice-involved young adults who are receiving services through multiple grants and programs at Arapahoe Douglas Works will hear consistent language through their experience working with AD Works. We've streamlined all of our paperwork to where it's uniform across the agency, and also Goal For It has been implemented statewide in Colorado. While working with youth who are justice involved, we are very aware of trauma-informed care and cultural sensitivity. We recognize that many of our youth who are justice involved are experiencing trauma. So we are constantly receiving training, and we're constantly practicing on trauma-informed care and cultural sensitivity. We ensure that we address the diverse needs of our customers, especially our young adults who are justice involved, to include racial, ethnic, and gender-related considerations. We talk to parents and young adults about the cliff effect and how to overcome the benefit cliffs. We coach our young adults who are justice involved to use the cliff tools from the Federal Reserve, which is a free resource to help them understand when benefits will decrease and how upskilling and next skilling can overcome those cliffs. So we do this by highlighting how a career pathway can increase the lifetime wages of someone entering into the workforce. We do also have an in-house GED preparation and tutoring, and we can provide these services even for those who do not qualify or are enrolled in WIOA. As mentioned above, we address barriers by braiding funding with all of our grants, as well as braiding funding with our community partners. For example, we partner with county housing navigators and other community-based organizations to assist with housing insecurity to help secure transitional housing. We have staff who are subject matter experts in working with young adults who are justice involved. They coach customers on how to explain backgrounds and employment gaps to employers, and they are knowledgeable and able to speak to the work opportunity tax credit and federal bonding. We also ensure that we provide data and labor market informed career navigation. On our website, we have an entire page dedicated to reports and data. On this page, we publish our industry profiles for our region. If you go to our website, adworks.org, and click on reports and data, you can view our industry profiles. We also use data to provide qualitative and quantitative program evaluation of impact and outcome. And so this helps us with our process improvements. So later on in the presentation, I will be providing data. Next slide, please. Arapahoe Douglas Works is very successful working with justice-involved youth and young adults because of our community partners. So one example is our partnership with Colorado Department of Corrections. We have assisted Colorado Department of Corrections in developing a registered apprenticeships for those who are incarcerated. So they include laundry technician and chef's assistant, automotive technician, automotive collision repair, office management is in development, as well as the entrepreneurial pre-apprenticeship. We have very strong partnerships with community corrections, diversion, and juvenile justice organizations to offer workforce development resources and programming. At the county correctional facility, we regularly provide workforce development services to those currently incarcerated. This includes one-on-one career advising and group career navigation and support, as well as facilitating workshops and providing career assessments. Individuals also receive assistance creating a resume that is uploaded to a flash drive that is kept with their belongings and provided upon release. Our business service team, they engage employers that are supportive of employing justice-involved participants for subsidized and unsubsidized employment. In addition, we provide business education on job quality and skill-based hiring. We also leverage the support of our Workforce Development Board and subcommittees and task forces. In fact, our workforce board has a youth task force. Their mission is to develop strategies to increase young adult engagement and enrollment in workforce development activities, especially for at-risk youth, including justice-involved youth. Next slide, please. As promised, I have some data for you. 20% of our participants are justice involved. These graphs provide data showing young adults who are justice involved participating in staff-assisted services through WIOA, resulting in long-term income and employment outcomes. The period for these graphs goes from PY17 to PY21. For the graph on the left, the blue line indicates that those youth who were justice involved and received staff-assisted services by the WIOA Young Adult Program. The red line indicates youth who didn't receive staff-assisted services by Arapahoe Douglas Works staff. So the graph on the right shows earnings, recaptured, and wage trajectory for WIOA young adult participants who were justice involved. And the blue line indicates the median and annual wage, and the red indicates those who were justice involved. Both of these graphs allow you to compare the results of the two groups and the significant impacts of the WIOA staff-assisted services. These graphs also provide longitudinal wage data that was collected for 131 youth exiters over the 5 program years who were justice involved at program entry. This group was earning $4,000 or 137% more 2 quarters after exit than they were 2 quarters prior to program entry. So by the 16th quarter after exit, youth exiters in this group were earning 304% more than they were prior to program entry. Next slide, please.
So in addition to the data, we also just wanted to share a quick snapshot of one of the many success stories that we've witnessed in the Future You program in regards to young adults who've been justice involved. So we did have a young man who came to Arapahoe Douglas Works with his transition mentor from a program called Strengthening Lives as he was transitioning from incarceration back into the community. So his workforce specialist helped him with career exploration activities and provided him with labor market information after he identified a strong interest in becoming an electrician. And his workforce specialist then helped him identify training pathways that could potentially open the door for him to start his career. And he ultimately elected to apply with a program called the Master's Apprentice, which is a pre-apprenticeship program that offers 6 weeks of training that explores various trades and helps participants build trade-specific skills, and actually hosts a job fair with multiple apprenticeships upon completion. So he successfully graduated from the program and accepted a position as an apprentice electrician, initially making $19 an hour out the gate, but with scheduled pay increases for milestones completed. So huge success for this young man, but he's one of many that has come through the Future You program. So on the next slide here, which is our final slide, is just our contact information. So, thanks again for allowing us to share some of our best practices at Arapahoe Douglas Works, but obviously feel free to reach out to us directly if anyone has follow-up questions that they'd like to ask after today's webinar.
Hey, Todd, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Todd.
I quadruple muted myself for the third time. There's another $20 in the jar or something. Thanks to Jessica and Larissa and all the panelists. I think if you really were noticing, there was a lot of different approaches to fixing or to create solutions for our young adults. And I really appreciate each of our panelists being vulnerable and talking about how that worked. I did have one question that came up before the webinar that I wanted to ask everyone, and then we'll dive in if we have a couple minutes for the other questions. But one to all of the panelists is, if you could go back and change one thing in the program building, what would that one thing be that you would change? And I don't care who takes that first. I might call on people.
I think for us, one of the things that we recognize and know is that our justice involved youth in general, but our justice involved youth, they take a little bit more time to get ready to go for an intensive workforce program. And I think as originally as we were building the project, we decided that we were going to place them immediately with employers, and we quickly backtracked from that approach and really just started to leverage the WIOA youth program to help us with that learning experience of creating a safer environment for our youth to make mistakes in before they then enter kind of full-time employment with employers. And I know that feels really straightforward and like a great thought process. And we had employers who were ready to hire people day one, so we wanted to capitalize on it. But it ultimately worked out better for us and for our youth to do that work experience through WIOA youth.
Rachel, thank you for that. And I think that's an incredibly important statement is young adults take a long time, but specifically our reentry population may take a little bit longer than that to get engaged. And then also we have to keep them engaged, which is not as simple as everyone thinks. So it's okay to fail. Make sure you put those roadblocks up so that you don't have a massive failure, but it's okay to fail as long as you learn from those pieces of fails. And with that, we do have 2 minutes left. There was a couple of questions in there, and some of it kind of blends. In the populations that you're serving, are some of them also considered homeless, or are we serving homeless in a different program?
We serve a lot of our youth are experiencing housing instability. We serve them in the same program. Same with the foster. There was also a question about foster care youth, and it's the same for us.
Yep. Thank you for looking at that, so I don't have to ask that same question. I do want to wrap up and get people out on time because I know that they may have another meeting starting in 1 minute. I do want to thank you on behalf of the National Association of Workforce Boards, and specifically in regards to the folks from Colorado. I do want to say thank you for joining us and across the nation. Thank you to the panelists for sharing. We will be sharing this information out, and it has been recorded, and that'll be coming from Connie or someone from the National Association Workforce Board. With that, this webinar has ended, and I thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.